Hey, welcome back to Drowning in Yarn. I'm Caleb. I've told y'all this before, but I love books about knitting. I think they're such a good resource to have on the bookshelf whenever you want to learn about a certain topic, and they're really great to flip through and get inspired whenever you're looking for a new project or a new technique that you want to try. So in this video, I want to tell you about some of the books that I love and share a couple of recommendations that I got from some of my Instagram followers. So if you want to find a new book to add to your knitting library, then stick around. So before we jump into the video, I just want to remind you to hit the like button down below if you're enjoying this video and you get some value out of it. And definitely hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and you want to see more knitting related content that I have coming up in the future. Also, if you have a book you think we should all know about, leave a comment down below. I really want to hear from you all. So the first book I want to show you is Knit How from the people at Pom Pom magazine. This was the first knitting book I ever purchased, and it was an invaluable resource and super inspiring when I first started knitting. The book starts out with well-illustrated step-by-step instructions for casting on, knitting, purling, and binding off. And then it takes you through the basics of picking yarns to make sure that you are successful with all the projects and swatching to make sure that they all fit you. Then before it jumps into the garment patterns, it teaches you a super simple pattern to knit a garter stitch square by knitting and a garter stitch square by purling so that you can practice. The bulk of the book, though, is predictably gorgeous patterns since it's from the people at Pom Pom magazine. The patterns increase in complexity and teach you everything from the basics of knitting, seaming, knitting it around, cabling, all of it. If you knit your way from the beginning of the book to the end, you would have learned so many techniques and feel like a really comfortable, confident knitter, and you'd also have a wardrobe full of really beautiful, simple, timeless hand knits. I think that even more experienced knitters would find these patterns to be really beautiful, fun patterns to knit when they're looking for really simple basics. So I don't think this book should be limited to just beginner knitters. You should check out this book even if you know what you're doing and you're just looking for some beautiful patterns. So next we're going to get slightly more advanced with the Colorwork Bible. This book is essentially a course in colorwork techniques that teaches you through a series of swatches so that you learn the technique and have practice before you use that technique in a pattern. The book covers knitting stripes, stranded colorwork, mosaic colorwork, intarsia, double knitting, and brioche. So by the end, you're well versed in a lot of different colorwork techniques. If you're new to colorwork knitting or you've done maybe one or two of these techniques and you want to learn more, this book is an awesome resource. But even if you are comfortable knitting colorwork, but you're not confident in your color choices, I really love the beginning of this book because it has really concise information on color theory and tips and tricks for choosing colors that will be successful together and picking yarns that are going to be successful in your colorwork projects. So I think it's a really helpful just kind of guide to working with color. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you and say that a lot of informational knitting books contain patterns that I don't love. But I think this book is sort of an exception. They're really cute colorwork patterns that I think help develop all the skills that you learn in the book. And with all the information you're learning about picking colors and picking yarns, you're going to end up with really successful projects in the end. So the last two books that I want to show you are really helpful, broader overviews of a lot of different topics that I think are invaluable resources for everyone to have. The first of those two books is The Knowledgeable Knitter. This book is an amazing resource that from cover to cover is like a master class. It's just shy of 300 pages and it teaches you everything from picking your tools to planning to modifying to fit and finish. The back of the book says that it teaches you more than just the how of the topics it covers and goes further to tell you the why, and I think that's a really accurate description. Each chapter is a great overview of the topic that it covers and teaches you a lot of useful and practical information. If you flip to a chapter such as the chapter on modifying a pattern, you could read it from beginning to end and not be bored because it's not just full of a lot of dry technical information, but it's also useful as a resource to just kind of flip to a page that has a topic that you want that you looked up in the index and just learn a little bit about that topic. I really like this book because of the chapter organization. There are chapters on fixing mistakes, on modifying shape, on fixing fit issues after you're done knitting something. There are also case studies in some of the chapters where the author walks you through exactly how she does something that's a little more complex. For instance, there's a couple of case studies on how the author modified a pattern to be a top-down pattern from a bottom-up pattern. So it's an awesome resource to really dive further into the topics that it covers. I honestly think that a beginner knitter might be a little intimidated by the information in this, but I also think that that same person would also be really inspired to learn more. I think this book would help make you a better knitter no matter what skill level you're starting at. So it's worth adding to your knitting library no matter where you are in your knitting journey. And the next book is a similarly broad book, but it's one that you've probably heard of, the Vogue Knitting Ultimate Knitting Book. This book is more like an encyclopedic resource than the Knowledgeable Knitter. This book covers everything, from picking tools to learning to read charts on up to caring for your knitwear and learning the basics of design. It's all in here. If you're an absolute beginner or an expert knitter, this book has you covered. Like I said, this book is more of like an encyclopedic resource, and I think it's best used by going to the index, finding the topic that you want to see, and then flipping to those pages to learn about it. I think you could read it from beginning to end, or just pick a topic or go to a chapter and learn about that thing, but it's going to be a little more dry than the Knowledgeable Knitter, but you're still going to leave having learned a ton. Now, I do think that the Knowledgeable Knitter is a little bit better of a resource for certain topics, such as modifying a pattern or modifying a garment that's already finished. I looked in the index in the Ultimate Knitting book and didn't see anything that would have immediately pointed out where I needed to go in this book, whereas the Knowledgeable Knitter has a whole chapter on that topic. But both of these books are equally valuable, I think, to have in your knitting library. There are more books listed down below in the description with some helpful links to buy those books. I've also included links to these books. If you have any questions or any books that you think I need to know about, leave a comment down below. If you haven't already, hit that little like button and the subscribe button down below as well if you want to see what other knitting related content I have coming up. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, enjoy your knitting.